Let's talk about what's happening with AI outside of Silicon Valley with today's amazing special guest, Aaditi. Welcome to the Artificial Intelligence Podcast, where we make AI simple, practical, and accessible for small business owners and leaders. Forget the complicated tech talk or expensive consultants. This is where you'll learn how to implement AI strategies that are easy to understand and can make a big impact for your business. The Artificial Intelligence Podcast is brought to you by Fraction A.I.O, the trusted partner for AI digital transformation. At Fraction A.I.O, we help small and medium-sized businesses boost revenue by eliminating time-wasting, non-revenue generating tasks that frustrate your team. With our custom AI bots, tools, and automations, we make it easy to shift your team's focus to the tasks that matter most, driving growth and results. We guide you through a smooth, seamless transition to AI, ensuring you avoid costly mistakes and invest in the tools that truly deliver value. Don't get left behind. Let Fraction AIO help you stay ahead in today's AI-driven world. Learn more and get started at fractionaio.com. Now, Aaditi, I'm so excited to have you here today because we spend so much time thinking about AIs living in Silicon Valley, and we don't even make the computer chips there anymore. And yet we think it's the center of the universe. There's so many things happening outside. One of the areas that really interests me is the after on effects of AI. We think about it as like this digital thing that has no impact on the world, but in fact, it uses massive amounts of power, electricity, space, and water. And actually, the largest user of electricity in all of Ireland is already AI server farms, and it's only going to grow. And I'm very interested because you're such an expert in the food sector, just how we're starting to see how AI is increasing efficiencies. And we're also seeing this big shift towards nuclear power. So there's a lot of things happening that I'm very interested in. But as we just get started, I would love to start off with kind of your expertise and kind of what you've seen as someone who's been just so dialed into the future of food over the past few years.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, over the next 20 minutes, I'm going to show you why some of the most important breakthroughs in AI are happening outside of Silicon Valley. So we're going to talk about food, health, biology, and companies that are using AI to design products faster, personalize nutrition, and even extend lifespan. And if leaders are ignoring this shift, they're missing a huge opportunity. So it's really in this application layer of these foundational models that are being developed in Silicon Valley that I think is super exciting and where a lot of value is going to be created for you and me, democratizing all of this health, just innovation that's happening.
Yeah, that's such an amazing perspective because when I think about what I knew about food when I was a kid, in my lifetime, eggs have been bad, good 50 times. And it was like, oh no, the yellow part's bad, the white part's good. No, it's all bad. No, it's all good. And just one thing I don't even know right now if they're good or bad because it's changed so many times. And I remember it was like, when I grew up, it was like, you need to drink a lot of milk or you'll never grow. And now we have so much more knowledge. Like I didn't really understand vegetables as a kid or healthy eating or any of these elements that now become much more well known. We have much better knowledge. I feel like knowledge is so critical when it comes to health. If we don't know what's good or bad for us, and it's like we don't teach very good lessons in America to our kids compared to some other countries. And recently I lived in Japan for a long time, and when you ask a kid there, what's your favorite food? They'll say, oh, broccoli or spinach. And people think they're joking, but it's because they start off with this mindset of teach kids healthy eating right out the gate, which we don't do in the West. So what are some ways that AI can help people be more aware or democratize the information or what's healthy or not healthy?
Yeah, for the average person, these tools are really changing the game in terms of education. Right now, we live in this world with, as I said, a bunch of kind of conflicting information, disinformation, information from like dubious sources. Like, for example, a lot of people don't know that the whole no seed oils thing was started by one influencer. And then that just really caught on. But the science, let's just say, is not fully there yet to at least fearmonger about seed oil. So things like that consumers are very confused right now. So what I'm seeing with AI on that consumer side is like apps that you can download the app, scan the barcode of whatever food you're trying to buy, and it'll tell you if there's any like crazy additives in there or ingredients you don't want in your body. And it actually gives these like foods a rating of like green, yellow, red. And so a lot of that kind of I'm seeing. And then, yeah, I think a lot of it's people are using these like foundational models as a personal health companion, right? So you can personalize the model, tell it all of your symptoms, and a lot of people are using that instead of a primary care checkup. So there's that aspect of it. And then I would say the final kind of innovation I want to touch on is this idea of like wearables. But let's go beyond wearables, right? Everyone's talked about wearables. We have the Aura rings. You can buy them in bulk at Costco because they're not in bulk, but you could in theory. It's like it's almost commoditized, right? So a really interesting innovation I saw recently is the idea of bringing a health screening to your smartphone, right? So everyone has a smartphone. Even people in developing countries generally have smartphones. And the cameras on these phones have become very advanced. All of the sensors are advanced. With this technology, you can take a 60-second video of your face and it'll tell you if you're anemic, your heart rate, your blood pressure, your just kind of overall health just from a video of your face. And then if you talk into it, it gets further like data points about your voice, about your cognition, about so I know it's this idea of how can we democratize access to prevention and health? Because in the past, our health system has really awarded kind of treating disease, right? There's so much money in treating cancer and heart disease and just less money in prevention. So I think if we can democratize that prevention, it's really going to change how people live.
That's such an interesting angle. I actually just used it to diagnose something last week. One of my feet was swollen, and then my wife was like, "You're in kidney failure." I was like, "I don't think so. I think I just worked too long." And it went away after a day, but it was like, there's this thing that people do. Like you'll go to WebMD and you'll say, "I think I have this," and you'll assemble the symptoms and you're like, "I'm dying." And there's this misdiagnosis issue. We're starting to, one of the dangers with traditional models is that they're like always agreeable. So if you say, "I think I have this, here are my symptoms," it'll go, "Sounds like you probably do," because it's being agreeable. So I know one of the challenges, and that's why you need a more specific tool, is one that like doesn't do that, focuses more on accuracy rather than agreeing with you. Because we are seeing this massive trend of people self-diagnosing like more and more. And but I do like this idea of that it's using actual data points because yeah, I took a picture of my 2 feet and then I took a picture of my foot the next day. I was like, does it look small or big? Because I can't tell. Do you know what I mean? When you're in your head, you're like, it's so much bigger, and the thing's like, no, it's smaller. Relax. And it really helps to have that objectivity. And I see going into diet, one of the challenges I've always tried to use those things where you write down everything you eat, and it's so hard. If you're able to do that, you're probably already really healthy, right? If you're able to be that focused or taking a picture, and in the past, like there wouldn't be that much data because you're trying to guess what's in it. But I think as AIs get smarter and they can take a picture in more frequencies, they can see what the ingredients are. I remember there was a Seinfeld episode many years ago. They had this amazing frozen yogurt. They're like fat free. And then someone went to a lab. It turned out it was full of fat. That's why it tasted so good. And just the thought of you could take a picture and it would immediately know, because there is this challenge of what ingredients are you using. One of the things that's really interesting is here I live in Asia, and MSG was never like negativized, like it never had people turn against it. So it's so common here. They sell it in every single gas station, every single like small market, every 7-Eleven has it, and you can buy in these tiny packets, and it's so frequently used. Now, I get a headache from it, so I always know when it's been added to something I eat, and I don't know if that's just me, but it's something that we don't, again, like you talked about it, sometimes like the science is like a little out because they were like, "Oh, monosodium glutamate is so bad for you." Now they're like, "No, it turns out it wasn't that bad for you. Maybe it's fine." And it's very hard to keep up on what's healthy, what's not healthy. And people's definition of healthy is so broad that it's amazing just like how different what people think is a healthy food versus not a healthy. If you look on a food delivery app here for healthy food, it'll show you like KFC. Like it's almost impossible to order vegetables. And even if you say, "I want vegetables," they're like, "What do you mean?" So definitions of healthy are so broad. And when I lived in Japan, if you said, "I'm a vegetarian," "Oh, so you just eat fish and birds?" Like they can't, it's so rare there, they can't wrap their heads around it. And it becomes very challenging. So having a tool that can tell you what the ingredients, and I also think about this, what if you have an allergy and you can take a food and it can give you a hint like, wait, something doesn't look right here. That could be really powerful. So I love what you're talking about. I can see how it could be so helpful for people to have a tool that provides objectivity. And definitely living in a third world country, I've noticed that everyone has access to a smartphone. Very, it's much more common than access to a laptop or a computer. So the fact that we can start to put these more powerful tools, like I have definitely thought about the democratization be the ability for now anyone can speak English without an accent, without spelling mistakes. Like it's such an advantage for people writing. But now to have the advantage of democratizing knowledge or information, I can see how powerful that is. That's really amazing. What are some of the other ways that you see some innovations happening that can really help everyone, not just the people at the top?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. So one area that I'm very excited about innovation is in the microbiome. When I look at what innovation is going to change the world, I'm sorry, it's not going to be iPhone 19 or iPhone to whatever number they're on, because these are very incremental changes. It's not having a 1 megapixel better camera is not going to change your life. What might change your life? Understanding the microbiome. And that's something we really do not understand, right? We sequenced the genome like decades ago, and then you can do a genome test for a couple $100, 23andMe, Ancestry. There's all these websites. And once you sequence your genome, it's okay, great, I know that. Okay, then what? Like you already know it. And yeah, there's some component of epigenetics, things, that can change in your environment. But for the most part, that's like a solved problem, or there's going to be incremental innovation there. But for the microbiome, like it changes every hour, every minute, right? Every meal you take, it's going to change. And we just don't have those high quality longitudinal data sets about the microbiome. And a major bottleneck there has just been like sampling costs. It costs about $250 now to get one sample of the microbiome. So if you think of it, like how are you going to test every day or ever after every meal? It's not really possible, right? We actually are invested in a company called BiomeSense that is creating these really high quality longitudinal data sets from a hardware device called the Gut Lab. And with this hardware device, once we have this data, that's really when AI shines. It can use all that data, kind of anonymize it, standardize it, and then mine it for for biomarkers. What that might look like in practice is suppose God forbid, someone gets cancer, right? And then if they have cancer, their microbiome could dictate what therapy is best for them and can track how that microbiome changes throughout that kind of therapy process and develop like therapeutics that are targeted through the gut microbiome pathway, which is something that we just haven't had much success doing in the past. So yeah, I'm definitely excited about that as a major area of innovation.
And that's so interesting because we saw the challenge with 23andMe, who just declared bankruptcy, was that they couldn't find a way to make the data useful. Like they were like, they kept promising they would find some way to use your DNA to like better provide some type of better health outcome. And they spent hundreds of millions of dollars in R&D and never found a result from that. And so maybe the result is somewhere else. And it makes a lot more sense that you would look at if you could get that specific data of what works on me and what doesn't work on me. Because even when people are taking medications, right? You're taking these 3 medications, you can't take this medication because they interact in different ways. And if you forget, like I was talking about me, but I had an ear infection recently. And because when I was a kid, I had to have surgery from an ear infection. So I had like tubes in the surgeries. Oh, we have to give you different drops because of that. I was like, what? And if I hadn't said it, they wouldn't have known, right? Because it's who looks at your record from 40 years ago. And these small things can make such a big difference that like, oh, I'm allergic to this, or I'm not allergic to that, or I've tried this and it didn't work. And I wonder if one of the other big problems is that people like never take the entire course of the medicine, right? Like you're supposed to take it for 7 days, you feel better after 5, so you stop. And then that's how you make like a resistant version of it. And I could see how having something that tracks and says, hey, you forgot to take it, can be really powerful. I've even when you try and have those like daily tracker things, if you're doing a lot of medications, which some points I have been, you then go, did I take this mornings or not? So having something that is paying attention from the inside could be very interesting. I think that's really exciting because there's much opportunity there. And I think that we don't even think like about how some foods are living. Like you want a yogurt that's living. You like kimchi, which I eat a lot 'cause I live in Asia. It's not just spicy, it's also alive. And that makes a huge difference in your microbiome. Like those are studies that I'm very interested in, is how like when you eat foods that are the bacteria is alive, it makes a really big difference. And it is very unknown and it's hard to track your data. Like one of the challenges that we have is even if you're on a diet, you go, I'm going to lose some weight and you don't have a fixed goal, immediately throws you off. And there's all these different things. How often should you weigh yourself? And how much of it's water weight and all of these things. So it's like I certainly, as someone who's constantly dieting, use these as excuses for vague data. And it's very interesting. So for people who are interested in seeing how far away do you think we are from having like meaningful data? Because you need so many data points for AI to have enough to find meaningful data.
Yeah, I would actually push back a bit on that point. I think now there's been a lot of active learning approaches where you only need a couple data points and the AI can train itself on that. So I think that is something we're seeing, obviously very emerging. But yeah, I think with the microbiome, a couple years, I'll say that we'll have enough data to have meaningful kind of clinical discoveries. It's happening really fast. And it's the crazy part. Like, I feel like I can barely keep up with my job because it just, yeah, there's so much change going on all the time. And there's different approaches to this as well, right? So there's one aspect of you can test the microbiome through a fecal sample that you put in a machine or send it off to a lab, and that's going to tell you your microbiome. But there's also startups like Throne, which is just putting a camera on your toilet, analyze everything that comes out of you on a daily basis, and using kind of computer vision and AI models can tell you, okay, are you well hydrated? Are you having this issue or that issue? And I think even Kohler, like one of the Kohler is like a brand for high-end kind of appliances like toilets and sinks and things like that. They just came out with a smart toilet. So these things are being rolled out very quickly.
Yeah, I just saw that in the news and it's like, how precise do you want it to be? And I remember like some people are very specific, like they weigh every ingredient that they're eating. And the hard thing about that is it's just a lot of work. It's when you start to move away, like when they started connecting the scale to Wi-Fi, and so you don't have to type it into your tracker. As we add the convenience and people are more likely to succeed, like the one thing I've learned having worked with so many clients is that the more you try to change behavior, the harder it is. So when you can, people are always going to use the bathroom. And the thing is, I already know if I had one of those in my bathroom, my kids would only use that bathroom. So then it would have to be able to tell all of us apart. And now it's a new challenge because it becomes funner and I can see how it will be really useful because it's passive. Like you don't have to change your behavior. Go and do a sample at the doctor's office. Like you have to remember, so don't go to the bathroom at home, hold it for the doctor's office. That's challenge for me, challenge for my kids. So I think even though it sounds a little bit silly, I could see it being really successful because it doesn't require any behavior change. It says, oh, you're already going to use the toilet. So we'll just make it easier for you. Mm, One of the things that's interested me is I sometimes see food companies come out and they go, we're bringing back an ancient grain, like we're sorghum or millet or barley, like, oh, we don't eat this anymore. Let's bring it back. And I wonder why do we shift away from these different foods and how can we figure out like what is the right one for us? Because there's so many people that are allergic or think they're on the spectrum of allergic to wheat. That didn't exist when I was a kid. There's like nobody, I'd never heard of that. And now it's 3 in 10 people have it or something like seems, and it's like, so you have to switch to these alternative grains or alternative things. And do you see AI and like technology helping us to figure out how to use some of these resources we just seem to have drifted away from for some reason?
Yeah, absolutely. I think just zooming out, we're in this very interesting time where it's a convergence of these kind of ancient practices. Like people are eating beef tallow and they're eating lots of meat and protein. And it's this Americana type attitude where we're going to be cowboys and we're going to be super wild. I don't want anything artificial. I have like my nicotine and that's like really popular right now. And then we have all of this tech innovation that's like promising to bring us into this like next century in this world. So yeah, it's a really interesting contrast. And I think about that a lot. So yeah, I think with the kind of is tech helping us be closer to our roots? I would say absolutely. And so the issue with the American food supply is that it's extremely concentrated. So, if you think about it, most of the calories from the American diet are coming from sugar, corn, wheat, soy. Like I just named most of it, right? Those are the commodity crops that we grow. And partly it's because of farm subsidies and different policies. Like, sure, there's all of that. But then there's this question of how can we rewild the American diet? How can we just diversify, forget rewilding, like just stop eating just these like few vegetables, right? So there's this company called Sicer. I love them. So they are creating like new varieties of chickpeas that have more protein, fewer carbs. And yeah, I mean, you could say, okay, it's genetic modification. In reality, like, we did have many varieties of chickpeas that have now all been consolidated into this like commoditized, like high yield, low nutrition type of product. So yeah, I'm excited about getting more of that diversity in the food supply. And there's quite a bit happening on the ag tech side. And I know a lot of it's controversial. Not everyone wants kind of GM products. But my pushback is that almost no vegetable or fruit we eat today is quote unquote natural. Like they've all been bred in some way or to have be sweeter and have better yields and all of that. And some of our favorite fruits and vegetables like don't really exist in the wild, right? Bananas are awful in the wild. Have you ever had a crab apple? They don't taste good. I think there is an aspect of okay, our produce is modified and how does that really look like in kind of the new world? And how can we diversify diets and palates? And yeah, on that allergy side, also seen a lot of innovation there. So there's some therapies now. A lot of people aren't aware of these where you can basically cure your allergy. And the way it works is that they give you a very like microscopic dose of a peanut or whatever that protein you're allergic to in something like a toothpaste or in drops that maybe you just add to water or you just take every day. And then slowly you can ramp that up. And for some people, like at the end of a year or 2 years, like they're able to eat peanuts. Other people, maybe they're just less reactive than they were before. But yeah, that's something that's really exciting. And I know allergy sufferers, that's like a huge segment in the US. So yeah, I'm definitely pumped about that.
Yeah, I think that we have like when I was a kid, corn used to look different. Like you'd get ears of corn and they would look like three different things, and now every corn looks like it's the same, like a clone. And we are so used to, and I think that's the thing that definitely happens in America. We always want it to look the same as it did last time. And so if you had one hot dog that was 5 inches and one that was 5.5 inches, you'd be like, what's going on here? Because you want that uniformity. And it has led to that in a lot in our food supply in a lot of places that like are very strange. Like all chickens should not be the same size as each other. Like all corn should not look the same. And I think that one of the things that's really strange, I think when people push against GM, it's that we've invented seeds that like don't self-replicate. So like you can grow one thing of corn, but then you have to buy seeds again. Like that's I think the fear people have with GM is that it's usually profit driven, which is like, how can we get more, what is it, like corn syrup into cows to make them fatter so they seem more valuable? And how can we put it into every drink? And it's why like American Coke tastes different than in other countries because we don't use real sugar in it anymore. So I think that is one of the areas where people's fear come from is that when you see large like farming companies get involved, they tend to be so profit driven that it doesn't benefit the end customer. If you ever look at like how chickens happen in America, it's horrific. Everyone says cage free. It's like yeah, but they're in like a nightmare basement. To be free range, they just have to see like sunlight for 6 minutes a day or something. That's not free. That's like what you get when you're in like supermax prison. You get a full hour of sunlight. So they get less, but we have these tricky terms that don't mean anything. Like free range doesn't mean anything. Cage free doesn't mean anything. You think free range, it's like it's a wild chicken that someone caught. That's not like that doesn't exist anywhere. And so we have these terms that kind of distract us. I think what do they call it? Like greenwashing, where they make you think something's healthy. So I think that is one of the areas where why people are trying to do this shift towards non-processed foods because it's like then there's a hope that it hasn't been messed with too much. And I think that's why people push against GM because I think it always starts out with an altruistic motive. We can give more people access to something that's healthier. And then someone's like, yeah, but we can also make more profit if we make it addictive. If you look at how many, I know you mentioned nicotine, like how many, if you look at an American cigarette, there's like 177 added chemicals or something. And it's like all these additional things they add in there that change everything. And it happens to a lot of our foods. And I think that the hope is that if you eat a non-processed food, it will be more natural, even though, like you said, everything has been through some type of modification or crossbreeding.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot about something that's called like a metabolic reset. And right now we're in this time where it's big food against big pharma. If you have two Goliaths like battling it out. This war started with pharma, and it started with Ozempic and the GLP-1s that have really flooded the market. Today, like more than 1 in 8 Americans has been on a GLP-1 before, which is insane, right? These drugs came out like maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago. They were around before, but they're really being used as like a weight loss tool. And so what these drugs do is it's not like a weight loss. You don't take Ozempic and the fat melts off you. That's not how it works. The way it works is that it's triggering those pleasure and addiction centers in the brain. So you have people who are like, oh yeah, I was on Ozempic for my diabetes or because I'm overweight. And suddenly I like don't want to smoke cigarettes anymore. I don't want to drink alcohol. I don't find like I broke that addiction overnight. And that's how it's working is through these pathways. So you have big pharma starting the war, and then big food is this is the first time in decades that they haven't been able to sell as much junk food to American consumers because the consumer taste itself has changed. People don't want highly processed, addictive, sugary foods. People on Ozempic actually crave things like a cracker. Like they don't want the sugar. Big food is now cool. How do we respond to this? I'm seeing high, like nutrient dense foods, high protein, low in calories, more like savory. And so they're trying to respond by coming out with supplements and foods that are convenient for GLP-1 users. Yeah, while it's great if people don't eat any processed food, like we still live in a culture that's very fast paced and women work and things like that. Processed foods are just more like convenient for people. So yeah, I think it's really interesting how this is going to play out. But I would say my money's on big pharma just because they have better margins and they have a lot more money. And yeah, potentially a lot of innovation coming out on the kind of pharmaceutical side there.
Wow, it's really interesting to think how much, if 1 in 8 people is taking it, how much they have to shift. If they want to eat something different. And and the thing is, it's such a new thing that you don't really like. I'm always nervous to be like the first person to try a new medicine. I'm like, let's see the side effects before we jump in. And it's like people have gone in so much on that. And there's such positive and negative things about it. And it is just pure profit. But yeah, so people are eating less or the cravings change because so much of the American diet is built around. I know it's not a pyramid anymore. They changed the shape of it. But one thing I always found interesting is watching like how much they increased the amount of sugar on the food pyramid. It used to be like it went from like you shouldn't have any to it's not so bad to it's recommended. And it's like sugar's not good. If you're watching this episode and you don't know, sugar's not good for you. There's no part of it that's good for you. So the fact that it's on the food pyramid, I guess they call it a plate now. Maybe they changed every few years the shape. But I remember when I was a kid, it was like you should eat 13 like servings of grains a day was like the recommendation. That's so much. I don't think I could eat 13 handfuls of rice in one day. Like that's a small serving of a grain. It's so much that I don't know if I'm much older than you, but I remember when they would send pictures, they would show you pictures of a balanced breakfast. They would show you cereal. This is part of a balanced breakfast, and it's like huge. It's like 3 glasses of orange juice, a glass of milk, your cereal, then like all these other things, and it's like a huge breakfast. It's like the cereal doesn't even really need to be there. But our definitions of what's healthy and what tastes good, like one of the things that really blew my mind was like when I stopped, I don't really eat sugar almost ever. And I drink the Coca-Cola I drink is they use stevia in it, which my kids think is so gross because they do drink real Coke. They're like, that's disgusting. And it's if you don't eat a lot of sweet stuff, your definition of sweet really shifts. Like we think that sweet is absolute in our taste buds, but it's not. If you never eat sugar, then you eat a really sweet strawberry, you're like, whoa, this is so sweet. This is a 10 out of 10 sweet for me. So it's like there are some foods because like I've been so far away from eating a lot of sugar that I can't like I taste like a cake, one bite of cake at one of my kids' birthday bars. I'm like, that is so much sugar. How can you? It hurts your teeth and you reset. And I think that's something that is really important, realizing that there's power in controlling and knowing what things are right for you and what things are wrong for you and what your body likes and craves. And it's very interesting to see that we are going to see these shifts in like the diet. Like if, yeah, pharma changes how people consume. And my understanding of Ozempic is that it makes you eat like once a day. Like it makes you less hungry. or it slows down your digestive system. So then how do you maintain profits or how do you maintain your business when people eat less? And the snacks we like certainly do change. Like the snacks I liked as a kid, now I'm like, those are gross. I can't even imagine. But we have these shifts. So what do you think is the future of food? What do you think looking forward? What are we going to see over the next maybe 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, the future of food, something I spend a lot of time thinking about. I think we're going to see shifts in various levels, but if I were to make a bold prediction, I think Ozempic is going to be like seasonal weight loss, right? People want to look hot in their bikinis in the summer and they're going to take some Ozempic, really slim down in the winter. They want to indulge with their family over Thanksgiving, Christmas. Like people will get off Ozempic. Like I really see it as just being like this tool people use for when they really want to slim down. I'm not saying that's necessarily good or not. Like, I think there's definitely cons to that. But yeah, just seeing like the price trajectory of you can get a compounded semaglutide, which is basically like an Ozempic or metformin, Zepbound, one of these. You can get one for pretty cheap, like I think $30 a month. Like it's really just going down every day. So yeah, that's one thing I see as like kind of future of food well-being. That's how people are going to consume. Another area that I do see innovation is just bringing more of diversity in the American diet. I see a lot of products with sorghum and buckwheat and a lot of these grains that, I mean, for me are like normal, right? Because I grew up eating a lot of Indian food that incorporates all of like a diversity of grains, lentils, sprouted foods. So yeah, that's something that definitely see in the diet. There's actually a company doing that now called Rancho Gordo. So they're doing like these heirloom bean varieties. So yeah, would definitely recommend checking them out. But yes, that's one thing is this diversification of the American diet. Yeah, then you have those. And then the third, I would say major change I see is the way people indulge and this the meaning of indulgence. Right. That's already changed a lot. Imagine in the past, it's okay, I'm going to eat this cake and these mashed potatoes, and I'm going to be with this big family. And a lot of that is changing, first of all. Big families are maybe you being the exception, but at least in the US, family size is definitely getting a lot smaller and people aren't having kids. And then with people wearing like all of these wearables and stuff, like people can see the impact of a wild night, of alcohol drinking, of marijuana or nicotine. They can see that in all of their data. And Aura rings are extremely gamified, right? It's going to tell you if indulged too much the night before. So I see the bar of the future as being, I would say, about 20 to 30% alcohol. Because already Gen Z is like the lowest drinking levels of any generation, right? So this is already changing. So 25 to 30% alcohol. Then you're going to have the THC drinks, which are exploding right now in the US. They're literally everywhere, Delta 9 THC. So, some percentage will be that. And then we'll see other kind of mood altering drinks like kava drinks or just maybe functional mushroom drinks, things like that. And then we'll see that health and wellness, get your vitamins and get your little high type of thing. So yeah, I think the bar of the future is going to be much more diverse than what we see today. So I think that's going to be a major shift.
Yeah, that if you knew what the different drinks were doing to you instantly, it would certainly like as much as you hear that, like they show you the bad picture on a pack of cigarettes, or they tell you, oh, every time you drink alcohol, it kills brain cells. You're like, I've got tons. So seeing those effects, that's very interesting to me because it could cause such a cultural shift as we have more data because a lot of industries rely on you not realizing the side effects, not realizing what's happening. There was such a shift even in my lifetime when they had to put like the ingredients or the calories in foods. Like when you go to a fast food restaurant, now they have to tell you how many calories and everything, and then they didn't used to have to. And the problem is that they play games where they'll tell you, oh, there's no fat in this or there's no trans fat. No one knows what a trans fat is, right? But I remember all these ingredients like there's no trans fats. I'm like, I don't know what that is. Is that good for me or bad for me? I don't know. And so having when the data sources, you have a tool that can scan your body or scan the food, it does put the power back in your hands. I think it's amazing. Some of the things you're working on and involved in with your investing are very cool, very cutting edge, and your focus on the future food is great. For people that are listening, startups in the food space, or people that want to invest, or just love what you're doing, where's the best place to find you, see the projects you're working on, and maybe even reach out and share what they're working on with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. That's like the best way to reach out. Definitely very active there. I'm also on TikTok. I recently started a TikTok called 9 to Thrive. And yeah, it's a lot of it's about venture capital and food. Yeah, you can connect with me there. But yeah, LinkedIn's usually best, or just at my email, first name at bluesteinventures.com.
Perfect. We'll put all those links in the show notes and below the video. Thank you so much for being here for an amazing episode of the Artificial Intelligence Podcast.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Artificial Intelligence Podcast. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss another episode. We'll be back next Monday with more tips and strategies on how to leverage AI to grow your business and achieve better results. In the meantime, if you're curious about how AI can boost your business's revenue, head over to artificialintelligencepod.com/calculator. Use our AI revenue calculator to discover the potential impact AI can have on your bottom line. It's quick, easy, and might just change the way you think about your business. While you're there, catch up on past episodes, leave a review, and check out our socials. If you enjoyed this episode, I've got 2 more that I think you're going to love. Click one of these videos to dive into more awesome content, and don't forget to subscribe for even more insights on using AI to grow your business. And I'll see you in the next one.